Thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. I'm a musician, producer, Ableton certified trainer, educator, and we're closing in on our 300th episode on the show. If you've been enjoying the show, I'd love it if you could leave a review. That helps get the word out. And today, the show is supported by my Music Production Club, which you can check out at brianfunk.com/MPC. This is how you keep up with my latest work and join a community of like-minded musicians and producers. It's only $6 a month and cheaper if you join for longer periods of time, and you'll get my newest works as soon as they're released. They usually go for about $15, so you're saving there right away. And once you join, you get access to a whole bunch of other stuff that you can download right away. My Ableton Live Pack archive, which is 200 plus Ableton Live Packs. My classical guitar Ableton Live Pack, the Ghost Ableton Live Pack, toy synths, dollar store keyboard, Dad's Dinosaur Friend Ableton Live Packs. I've got an Ableton Live Pack of arrangement templates, a live performance Ableton Live template. You get the music production exclusives live pack. We've got sample packs that come with the club, and you also get my educational materials, including the 5-minute music producer, which is 365 daily songwriting and music production activities, my live performance in Ableton Live video course, my What Bob Ross Teaches Us About Music Production book, the Creating Excitement video course. And there's more. There's also a community of like-minded producers. Making music is hard, so it's important to build a network of people to support and help along the way. You can join our monthly live meetings to discuss music making and connect with me and other members of the club. We've got a Discord, which is really a great way to share your music and meet new people. It's going to get really exciting in January because we're about to start the January Challenge, which is to make a short piece of music every single day during the month of January. It's really encouraging to see everyone else trying to make their music every day and sharing their thoughts, listening to each other's songs. I love it. It's so inspiring, and inevitably lots of great things come out of it. We're also getting ready to wrap up our Fall 2022 compilation, and there are other challenges that we do during the year that you can get involved with to help accelerate your music production. The Music Production Club is my way of getting as much of my work to you at the lowest price possible, and it's a community where we can share our love of music making and help each other through its challenges. It's really my pride and joy. I really love every single one of you that is a member, and I hope that you'll join us to make the Music Production Club even better. You can join at brianfunk.com/MPC. Hello, welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. On today's show, I have Johannes Ringen, and he is a film composer. And he just worked on the Netflix film Troll, which is flying up the charts in a most impressive way. He's worked on Avengers, Age of Ultron, Fate of the Furious, and he's got The Girl from Oslo as part of his credits. He's got so many amazing films that he's worked on, and I'm very excited to talk to him about his work and how he composes for film and how that might differ from some of the other types of writing that we all do. Johannes, thank you so much for taking the time to be here, and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. That was quite an introduction.
Well, I think your work is very impressive, and I've been enjoying it, listening to it even on Apple Music. So it's great stuff, and I'm honored to have you here.
Thank you so much.
So congratulations on the success of Troll. It's been really cool to see that, this film has taken off like that. I think it was the #1 film for a moment there on Netflix.
Yeah, I think there was for quite a few countries, really. So that's beyond everyone's expectations, I think, that's a foreign language movie to do so well. That's a lot of fun, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's like a bit of a tide change, I think, too. We've had a few things break through here in America, at least. Obviously, Squid Game was a huge one. But even the series Dark, I watched all that. And again, there's this more accepting feeling, I guess, to people watching foreign films with either subtitles or overdubs. It's nice to see it. It just exposes us to so much more great art.
Sure, and maybe when it's foreign language, there might be a little twist, something exotic in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It can be give it a little bit of an edge, I think, like Squid Game. That's a really good example, I think.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think a lot of that is happening with Troll too, kind of Nordic fantasy type of thing going on.
yeah,
So yeah, it's really great to see it's doing so well. And I thought maybe if I could ask you what the process is like from when you kind of get the work to, the music obviously colors the feeling of the film so much. And I'm curious how that all plays
yes,
out for you.
yeah. That's the quite quite big a question.
Yeah, I know.
So
We got time.
yeah, we got time. Great. So I think the main difference between composing or writing songs is when you're writing songs, you're basically done when you have an awesome song.
Mhm.
And on film scoring, it's all about the movie. So it's a quite a different task. So the process normally begins with a lot of conversations about the movie, because at the end of the day, it's the director who approves everything. So it's very important that you just don't go in one direction. Um,
Mhm.
so there's a lot of discussions about what does this movie needs. There are characters. What sell the music? What is the storytelling element of the music? So it's obviously the sooner you're starting the process, the better. If you're there, like when they're writing the script, that's the absolutely best thing. Sometimes you get in really late when they have a sort of a close to final cut. Then it's a little more challenging. We can talk more about that later. But I don't know if you. There's this thing called temp tracks. When
Mm.
they edit the movie, the picture editors they put placeholder music in there, and they can put their favorites from their film score collection, and they have something from Hans Zimmer, and they have something John Williams from Star Wars, and it's really hard when you get there and you're sort of like what you're trying to beat is the best music in the history of film music. So if you get in early and sort of filmmaking is really a collaborative process, and if you get everyone in page and you sort of create the sound world, so when the final cut or the process is close to the final cut, there's a lot of your music in there. That's half the job that is done right there.
So that kind of spot there where you got the placeholder music, right? I could imagine that people, especially like you said, it's against like some of the finest music ever composed for film. It must be really difficult to sort of untether your, especially for the director, to untether themselves from those sounds and then start to get used to something else. It reminds me a lot of when we're writing a song and you make your demo and you listen to the demo a lot and you like the vibe of it. Then you go to record it in the studio and it's hard to capture that energy you had when the idea was brand new and fresh.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. And the thing is, sometimes a scene works because of the music, and it works because the music is awesome, and people think it's awesome because it's been in a movie. So there's already some emotions connected to it.
Hmm.
So when it's taken up and something else is put in, like the scene falls apart. So that's a real struggle there. But there's definitely some strategies and most directors like the movies to have a unique soundtrack. So uh, it's always better when you can sort of put something of your own and making it unique. That's sort of like the selling point, but at the same time, it's so hard when this temp track have been there for so long and everyone is so used to it.
Right.
Yeah,
How do you manage that? Now, are you trying to copy more or emulate, maybe is a better word, like the emotional character, or is it sometimes like the sounds that are being used? And is it hard to
Yeah,
find the
obviously.
line where you're not just copying something and making a second-rate version?
Yeah, that's the thing to avoid. So you're not sitting there and just ripping off what's already there. So again, it's you have these conversations with the director again, and you try to figure out what is it with this track that makes this scene work, and you try to come up with some strategies. Maybe it's the harmony that's the important thing. Is the arrangement? What about the arrangement? And then you can sort of go and say, how can we make this better? And then you can maybe we can make it bigger here, and then we can make it smaller here, and then you're slowly getting there. And at the end of the day, you're hopefully knocking it out and come up with something that everyone is happy with.
Right. Yeah, that's a big challenge. I mean, even for me, sometimes when I try to replace sounds in a song, it's like, oh, I got so used to
Yeah,
that, and with bands, we sometimes that first time we ran through the track was great, but it's recorded in a low quality, and then the energy is so
right.
hard to recapture.
Yeah, I have a feeling that most mixing engineers, they want to hear the rough mix when they're mixing, because they want to hear what everyone has been listening to.
Right.
So it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So they can get a sense of what we're trying to go for.
Yeah.
What process did you get involved with Troll? At what point in that
So
process?
the script was done, and they had started shooting, and unfortunately, I came just a little too late into the process, to be honest with you, because the picture editors, they had already started to put music in there. So I wish I got in like 3 months earlier, but I got in and made a lot of music, and slowly started to have the picture editors put in my music, which made everything like a lot easier when we got to the composing stage. I really like to do that, to compose a lot of music beforehand, because you get so attached to picture, and if you to have a sort of like a bird's eye perspective on everything and make music that stands on its own, I think it's a really good strategy. Else you get so micromanagement kind of into every sort of detail in the picture when picture changes and everything. And then the next step is when you have a lot of music to draw from, then you try to arrange it in a way that makes sense with the picture, if
Right.
that made sense.
Right. You like to give yourself music that'll be listenable and enjoyable, even if there is no picture. You're not relying on that visual.
Exactly. Yeah. So the idea, a lot of this music cannot be used. It doesn't fit because it doesn't work. But to just have a lot of material to draw from, that is sort of like the creative process. When there's a lot of stress involved, just to have something, you have established a sound, and everyone on the team, the picture editors and the director, it's much used to hearing something, a sound world. If you start like delivering stuff like really at the end of the process, there's a new element that's kind of hard to work with for them, I think.
Yeah, you get so familiar with the work, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Now, let me ask you, when you're composing that way, does that sort of liberate you in the actual writing of the music, in that you have kind of the freedom, and you also know that some of it's not going to get used. I can imagine how that might take away some of the perfectionism that can often get in the way.
Yeah. To be honest with you, that is absolutely the most fun part. That is this process of coming up with a concept and the idea. When it gets closer to the finish line, that's when the work begins.
Right.
So I find it really liberating and fun to just let the creativity flow and just come up with a lot of stuff and not be so judgmental about it. It's just a thing, right? Drunk, edit sober or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a good strategy, just quantity over quality. And out of that quantity, there's going to be some quality pieces that you can bring in the process.
Yeah, that's the fun part of just coming up with ideas. I mean, that's what I love probably the most, is when I go to write or play music, when it could go anywhere and I can make anything. And it's exciting, and everything is new that you do. But then when you have to start deciding, that's when it gets tricky. I'm going through that right now. I have a bunch of songs that I've been working on that are they were kind of done in little jams, and they over the course of just a few hours, and they're these kind of very loose ideas for songs. A lot of the lyrics are just mumbling, but the melodies are kind of in the spots where they should be. Now, when I'm trying to complete them, it's like, okay, yeah, we got to get in there and make sure everything's flowing together. And it is more the work part of trying to
for sure
focus in on that idea. Yeah.
And that's where I'm in a way cheating, because I have a deadline that is a hard deadline.
Right.
No one is waiting for me because the marketing is already there. The posters are out. Like, it just has to be done. And I'm getting to the point that I don't think that I could finish a piece of music without the deadline.
Really?
Because I have this. There's always this deadline. So and I'm so used to it now. So yeah.
I often do the self-imposed deadline, but it's so easy to cut yourself slack, Well, you had a rough day, Brian. You can sit on the couch for a few hours, and there's no one coming back at me. No one really cares if I ever put out another piece of music ever again,
Right.
So there's no one has any stake in the game here. It's just really, it has to come from me, and it is hard to discipline yourself like that. And I find myself more and more, it's like I'm really just looking for ways to fool myself or trick myself into, you have to move forward, you have to go. There's just no way around it.
That's what we all do.
Yeah, because I'm sure you work on it forever if you want to.
Oh, for sure. Like, it's this Peter Gabriel quote that there's no album. I might be paraphrasing, but there's no album that's done. It's just given up.
Right.
Or something along those lines.
Yeah.
With film scoring, it's just taken out of your hands in a way. So, for good and bad, you get to write a lot of music. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever feel like an anxiety or discomfort about what they're getting from you at the time of the deadline, or is it? Do you manage to find a way usually to get that done?
Oh, in the beginning, it can be nerve-wracking because you sort of like have everyone on the same page concept-wise. It can be a little tricky and nerve-wracking, but I find that once you get into a groove and you have established the sound world and everyone is on the same page, it's more about like doing the work.
Right.
But it's not nice if you present something and it's completely wrong. That could happen. Yeah.
Well, there are so many people involved in the making of a film like this. And, like some of the others you've worked on, they're massive, if they were businesses, companies, these would be like some of the largest companies in countries. So there's so many people relying on your work to come through that I'm sure that is enough to maybe push you to work those late nights or put that extra effort in to make sure everything's right and on time.
Yeah.
You mentioned a phrase that I find interesting, sound world of the movie.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Just this concept of sound world?
That's my favorite topic to talk about.
Oh, good.
Because I think it's so fun. That there are many sides to this, but one of the most practical sides of it is you don't have time to sort of come up with a new palette for every. A piece in a movie is called a cue. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but you can't come up with a new palette for every single cue. So you need to have sort of a box that you work inside sound-wise, and it can be like some scores are purely orchestral, then it's a given. It could be ambient stuff. I just bought, the Strymon, the big sky.
Yeah. The reverb pedal.
I just bought the plugin, and it's. I'm sure you could do a drama movie like with only that plugin. You could just put different stuff into it, and it could turn out awesome. So it could be a very sort of sound design kind of thing, and it could be a purely orchestral traditional thing. With Troll, the director, he's really into the movies from the 90s. That's the stuff he grew up on. So he really wanted to have this sort of he wanted it to sound big like an orchestra can, but he also wanted to have some Nordic elements in it. So I used what is called knuckleharpe, which is sort of fiddle. It reminds. It's probably a bit more like a hurdy-gurdy.
Okay.
So we tried to combine everything and to give it this sort of flavor. So that was the sound world for that movie. Orchestra, big drums, and some folksy kind of string instruments. Yeah.
Okay, so that ties it to kind of the actual world that this is taking place in.
Exactly. Yeah, and the sort of the thing that it's big is there are a lot of action scenes in that movie, so you have to have a sound world that can sort of have action music in it.
Right.
So it's those considerations as well when you conceptualize a movie. What kind of vibes do we have to go into? Is it a lot of action? Is there a lot of drama? So you have to find a box that sort of can have all these kind of vibes inside of it. That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense, and it reminds me of making an album, really, where there's a sound world of the album. Usually, I'm in all my favorite albums and the ones that I try to do. I was telling you before about the songs I'm working on. I had so many of these half-finished ideas, but I selected for the ones that kind of all felt like they went together and lived in the same sort of sonic space. And
cool.
That continuity in a record is pretty important. I mean, it keeps the listener immersed, and it's not jarring when each song switches. It's still like you're still here and you're still within this kind of idea.
Right. So you chose the IDs that you went through with based on sort of you wanted it to fit into an album? Was your
Yeah.
approach?
Yeah, I
Cool.
I chose the similar instrumentation, even
All right.
similar drum sounds. There were songs that were kind of similar in structure and maybe even energy, but I might have like played real drums on them, and they just compared to these kind of more electronic drums I had in there, it felt weaker and it felt like a different place.
All right.
And it was also nice too, and maybe this happens for you as well. It was nice to whittle it down that way, where there's
Yeah.
dozens and dozens of ideas. Obviously, I can't finish them all. Some of them are going to have to go. And
Yeah.
to have this criteria that immediately brought me down to like 10 was
Yeah.
really, really, it was relieving.
And that's fantastic. And I think this analogy, it's a great analogy for a film score. In a way, it's a concept album.
Hmm.
This you have all this Pink Floyd, The Wall. That was just the first one that comes to mind. There are hundreds of them. But yeah, it's there's some sound world and there's a continuity and a lot of similarities, like from one cue to the next and so on and so forth.
Hmm. Yeah, that's nice. That must free you up a lot. And once that direction is established, where,
Yeah,
you know,
it's really helpful. We discussed the temp track earlier, and it's a really nice thing because you can, if it's something that everyone is attached to, you could go like, okay, let's do this sort of feeling, but let's do it in our sound world.
hmm,
Because
yeah,
then there's something positive about it. We're taking out something that's belongs somewhere else, and we are doing something that has the same function, but we're making it our own.
right. So yeah,
Yeah,
and that must work well with those, Hans Zimmer scores that aren't going to sound like the world that, you're in, and the Superman theme or the Jaws theme is not going to
yeah,
fit and troll, but it has maybe that energy, and then that's the process of like translation.
exactly. Yeah,
That's a fun way to think about it. And I always talk a lot about restrictions and limitations as sort of like the key to getting creative. When you have,
yeah,
the biggest problem I have is when I say open up my computer, I can do anything in the world. There's
oh
every
yeah,
sample and every synthesizer and libraries of orchestras and different instruments. It's sometimes paralyzing, that choice.
oh for sure. And yeah, I'm a huge sound nerd. I collect a lot of sound and have too many plugins, as I'm sure we all do. And like the creativity thing and setting some boundaries, the sound world thing, that's a boundary right there. Because once
Hmm.
you've sort of narrowed it down to just an orchestra and some folk elements, I mean, you're halfway there in setting boundaries.
Yeah.
So you don't have to start the writing process like what instruments am I going to use today?
Right.
Yeah, but that's a super interesting topic. I love it.
Yeah, it really is, and that
Yeah,
the decision is made for you. I've been
yeah,
playing with a couple of my buddies. We're a three-piece rock band, guitar, bass, and drums and vocals. And
yeah.
right there, every time we get together, like we don't have to pick out presets and we don't have to pick out drum
No,
samples. That's what we have. But when we were
yeah,
doing our album, we're recording these songs, and we have now to think about the sound world, really, of this album.
right.
And there's a lot of temptation to dress it up in ear candy, synthesizers, and color it with all kinds of effects and plugins and reverbs and chop in the vocals, whatever, you can go wild. But once we decided we wanted to sound like the band still, We're not going to do
Cool.
that. We want to have this like kind of energy of us playing. It I can't even tell you how much I literally could feel like the pressure on, because I was going to be mixing it and producing. And as soon as we like cleared that up, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like it was like there was a million things over here that I could just forget about. Like I don't even have to
Yeah.
think about that. It was so liberating. And um, I don't know.
Do you play live with that band?
We have not played this act out live yet. We're waiting for our vinyl
Okay.
records to come in, which should be possibly even by the end of the year. But
Cool.
we're gonna wait until we have those and then just go out. I mean, we're you know, we're just it's for fun. We're
Yeah.
all writing songs and producing music on our own, and it was just a really nice way to get back together, playing with people and writing together, because I've had all the time to do it by myself. And growing up, I would always play with other people, but I think when I had an idea, I was a little too demanding of what I wanted everyone else to do. I know what the drums should do and the bass, and you kind of like picture it, because I never got to do that before. But now that I've had all the time to do it myself, it's liberating to put it in other people's hands. But
Yeah.
yeah, we will. I mean, that's what we look forward to here and there to play out. But having those
But
those definitions of what your work is it gives you a place to go with it instead of kind of floundering in space.
yeah, I was thinking about it when you told me about your band, and it's so cool to hear people play live. At least for me, I spend so much time in the studio. So when I listen to live music, I really want it to be this just a lot of energy and that you get from a three-piece band.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm so glad that you sort of wanted to keep the energy and not mess too much about it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
definitely relying on energy.
yeah.
That's a big part of it. I mean, energy over perfection, I guess.
Did you add anything, or did you just keep everything raw?
We did the kind of rule I guess we had was like, for emotional impact, we can do, there's some overdubs with guitars, and there's an
Right.
occasional like soft synth kind of gluing everything together, but it's nothing too over the top. And I think when you hear it, it sounds like a band playing.
Cool.
We might have recorded a few more vocal tracks than the three of us could do in real time, just to fill out some
All right.
harmonies and things. But nothing. But we knew we weren't going to have like spaceship noises and like crazy synth leads
Yeah.
that didn't exist yet. So we had that kind of planned out a little bit.
But it's really interesting how technology sort of informs the process. You didn't record to tape, did you?
No, we recorded
No.
into Ableton Live. We did
Right.
master it to tape though.
Right. Cool.
And that was great. That really took it to a new place. We had a great mastering engineer.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that was a lot of fun. But we could have recorded to tape, but it was, just the instability of it and the inconsistencies. We decided, let's make this nice, and then maybe when we're done and we're tired of working hard on this thing, we'll just do like a day and we'll just bang something out on the tape and see what happens. So
Yeah. The reason why I mentioned it, it's just because recording to tape, it enforces the process. It really sets some
Sure.
boundaries because you can't fix things afterwards. So it's not just about the sound, it's the process as well. So yeah, I was just curious, but yeah, I'm sure the end result will get really great either way.
Well, part of it was we were still kind of writing the songs as we recorded them. So,
Cool.
what happens is we all play together and we work out our parts and stuff, but there's sort of like this I thought of it like a cloud of possibilities. Like
Right.
the drummer, Chris, he might hit the kick drum here, here, and there, but then tomorrow he might hit it here, here, and here, you know?
Yeah.
And then the bass player, Alex, he might do it a little bit different. And I'm going to strum a little. But once we had like our drums down, we're like, okay, now let's
Right.
play off. Let's lock it down. So there's a little bit of that going on.
And were you sort of super strict, like no editing or?
Oh no, there's editing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. We did our best to I like the idea of playing straight through the performance.
Right.
But there were some things where I felt like it didn't benefit it to, go back through that, where we could just, look, we could really just, this problem could be done in 4 seconds if you just give me 4 seconds. Or we can spend 15 minutes trying to do it over. So,
for sure.
There's the time constraint for us, I guess, was that we're only together usually like once a week.
Okay. Yeah.
So there was a bit of like maximizing that and that kind of stuff,
Cool. Yeah.
I look forward to doing another session where we just kind of go right on the tape and just, the kind of the opposite approach. Instead of the track by track sort of thing, the just, that was actually a motivating factor for me in working on it and making sure all these little details were right. Was that next time we're just gonna go for it? It's gonna be like rapid fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
When you're coming up with your work, where are you working? Are you working in a computer? Are you writing notes out? Or do you have musicians in front of you?
No, I'm really a computer-based. That's how I work. And I grew up with Cubase, and so that's I really come from a sort of music production perspective. Mm-hmm. But as my career has went on, I've studied music, and but it happens in computers, and but I mean, like either way is fine. The way I think about it is the different ways of making music has its benefits, and there are certain benefits to writing on paper, but you can do a lot with computers as well. So anything goes really. Mm-hmm. But when I compose, a lot of it's just improvising, coming up with cool sounds. There's no hard and fast rules really.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're motivated by the sound design part, coming up with something interesting. I'm the same
for
way.
Sure.
Yeah.
One sound could start a whole piece, and at the end of the day, that sound is not important anymore.
Right?
Do you understand?
I've deleted those sounds before.
Yeah. but that sound just inspired the complete composition, and it's so fun. I find like if I'm working on the score page, it's a little dry. Do you know what I'm saying? It's you can hear the orchestra coming out of your computer. Isn't that a lot more fun than just sitting with
Right.
So I have to say, with Troll and when I work on those bigger movies, everything gets recorded at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So that's the process, because the director that I was working on with Troll, I can't give him, he needs to hear something to sort of be able to sign off or give notes. So there's this mock-up, which is this thing that's huge in film scoring, because the picture editors, they have the mock-ups and the director have the mock-up, and when everything is approved, that's when we go and record the orchestra.
Right.
So that's a lot cheaper than
I bet.
like they did back in the day, like when all the director had heard it was these piano sketches, and then they go 2 weeks and do changes and everything. But now everything is sort of like approved beforehand, so we can just go and record just the pieces that we need.
Mm. Oh, I can
Yeah,
imagine, right? Like, if it was just on paper, if it was just piano, and then you
yeah,
hire all these musicians to come in and perform it, and then it's like, we need to tweak this or that or the other thing, to
yeah,
have the ability to really get a sense of what it's going to sound like in the computer.
yeah. I mean, like even for me, sometimes I start with doing a piano sketch, and then I orchestrate it. So start with piano, and then this goes into strings, this goes into brass, and so on and so forth. And can you imagine for a director, like when he's only been hearing these piano sketches and they get and record everything with an 80-piece orchestra? That's a huge difference
Yeah.
in sound. So yeah. But now
Wow.
we can make a really, really close version of it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Are there kind of like is it rules maybe, or like conventions you kind of follow if you take those piano sketches where you kind of know that, like, all right, this is what the strings would be doing? I mean, I guess there's of course the limitations of the instruments. You know, on the computer, you can make a violin play any note you want. It'll just change the sample.
Yeah.
You can play the lowest notes. But when you're trying to take this into an orchestra, I guess I'm thinking more like the roles those different instruments play. Like
Yeah.
what determines like that the brass is going to do this, or this would be better for strings or winds or something like that.
I think I have a pretty clear picture beforehand what sort of color I want for the different pieces. So if it's a slow and fragile piece, then it's going to be strings, probably. It's going to be bombastic and a lot of weight. It's going to be brass because brass is really loud. But other than that, it's of course the ranges of the instruments. Like violins can play from a G, and so yeah. So its color is one consideration, and the ranges that's a different consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Strings sound pretty. They have very much of the same color in a way. It's a pretty, in a way, a contrabass is just a really big violin,
Right.
in a way.
Yeah.
But with like an oboe, it's very different from a flute.
Mm.
So it really depends from the different instruments groups.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. Like,
Yeah.
brass is, of course, tied to like announcement, triumph, and
Yeah.
big moments. You know,
Yeah.
when the king came to court, it was the trumpet playing. You know, it was for a reason. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting how you can use just the sounds and the textures of those sounds to convey those feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
I guess I kind of got this world is very foreign to me, is like composing for orchestra and writing out music on, note paper and sheet music and stuff like that. And this probably comes mostly from reading and learning about the Beatles, but the way George Martin would take their music and then score it in a way that was sort of like the proper way. And then they would kind of look at it and say, okay, well, we're going to do this instead. And, he would say, you can't really do that, but we're going to try it.
Yeah.
I wonder, I guess, if there are certain things you follow or certain patterns, whether it's things like voice leading or just the conventions of the particular instruments.
And that's a really good question. I think part of it, the part of it, why we follow these rules is that that's the way the orchestra is used to playing, because time is always a factor. So in a way, you have to get as much out of the hours you have with the orchestra as you can. So whenever you start to do this sort of weird stuff, you know that you're gonna spend an hour on it.
Right.
So you have to go with what you know works in a way. But yeah, it would definitely be cool to experiment more and do more stuff like that and go crazy and break conventions. But recording orchestras, it's not cheap.
No.
So, but yeah.
I mean, there's really nothing like that, though, hearing that sound and like in front of you. I vividly remember going to college and taking classes, music classes. I didn't major in music, but I probably took enough to minor just because that was how I filled all my electives. But one class, and subsequently many more, but the first class that I took, part of our work was to go see the school's orchestra play. And
Nice.
I sat down kind of, the rock and roll kid, thinking like it was going to be like old fashioned or something. Immediately, as soon as they started, I was like, whoa, like I was, and then the dynamic range, more than most rock bands. I mean, like how quiet it can get and then just so intense. I was really, really blown away by just hearing that in person in front of you. Is just, I think I had chills the whole time. Just amazing. It's so powerful. That many musicians just sounding like almost like one thing.
It's fantastic. And when you go to these scoring sessions, these are studio musicians. So what fascinates me is that they have never looked at the scores before. They get it on the stands, and the first time you can hear that it's a little wonky here and there. But the second time, it's just like it's bang, it's there. So yeah, it's amazing how these players, they've been working their whole life, and it blows my mind every time. And then it's fascinating because normally when you are on the second or third take, it's basically there. And then if you go on too long, they sort of like, they lose attention in a way.
Right.
So when it gets worse, that's when you should move on to the next one.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You kind of got their best in there.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's true though. There is like a sweet spot, when it's still kind of new and exciting, and then it just becomes
there's this. Yeah, orchestras, they're fascinating thing. There's a lot of psychology in there, and
yeah, not so much in the plugins.
No, although those are pretty predictable.
Do you have any particular tools specifically that you like to go to when you're composing for orchestra? Any libraries or?
Yeah, there's something called the Cinematic Studio series, that I think are really, really good. What's so great about them is that, I mean, there are a lot of great sounding string libraries and brass libraries, but many of them, they're lacking the dynamics. Some of the orchestras, they sound really nice at soft dynamics. Some sounds great at loud dynamics, but the Cinematic Studio series, it's very balanced and very cohesive. So you can play soft and you can play loud, and so it's a really good writing tool, I think. I don't know if you're familiar with them or.
I don't know that. Do you know who makes that?
No. there's this Australian guy.
Okay.
What's his
Hmm.
name? Alex Wallbank. But
Hmm.
I mean, there are so many
Yeah.
options and so many great ones. But for working, I find that it's very relevant in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting close to the sort of the final result.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean,
Well, do you have any favorites?
well, I don't do a lot of the cinematic orchestra type of thing.
No.
Um,
Oh.
but I do have some stuff from Spitfire that I think
Oh yeah.
is incredible. For me, I feel
Fantastic.
like I'm there almost. Where
Yeah.
I'm, I'm sure it's. I mean, it's hard to just recreate that, but for tucked in my mixes maybe and what I'm working on, it's usually plenty. It's
Oh, it is really, really good. And they record the stuff in London.
yeah.
Uh, so Abbey Road and Air Studios, it's really fantastic studios. So yeah, it has a really good sound, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, I love all the
Yeah,
stuff they do. Even the free stuff, the lab stuff they do. I
yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
like that. I mean, I use it more because it's a little more, it's quirkier. A lot of what they do
Yeah,
there.
I have just I don't know if you're familiar with the piano book thing.
Yes, the piano book. Yeah.
Oh, it's I think it's fantastic.
Hmm.
For the same reason, it's the quirky thing. They
Yeah.
have sampled something particular, really, really like a super one trick pony,
Right.
and it's so yeah,
That's the kind of stuff I like to work on when I'm making my sound.
yeah,
I make all these sounds mostly for people that are using Ableton Live, and it's pretty much anything I can record. I'll try to throw in a sampler and see what will happen to it. But
yeah,
I just love that when you record anything really, like it's something only you can do. You know,
yeah,
one I have that I really enjoy is the piano. It's in my house. It's
right,
over 100 years old. I got it from a Salvation Army, and nearly destroyed it trying to transport it home. and
right,
it makes noises. It's not. It's been tuned, so it's better now. But it's got a lot of issues, and problems. But I sampled all the keys, different velocity layers, and
oh,
and it just
fantastic,
it just sounds so real.
yeah,
Sometimes when you take things in the perfect studio, it's especially when I'm combining it with stuff I'm recording myself anyway. It's like here's this perfect grand piano that was recorded, say, at Abbey Road Studio. It's immaculate, and then I play
yeah,
guitar over it in my room here. It's just like they don't sit together sometimes. But having like something like that that's quirky and has its flaws, I love that. I love even
oh,
if people are making noise in the background when I'm sampling something and then their voices are kind of lingering behind the music.
yeah,
It's a lot of fun just to get that
yeah.
weird stuff happening in your music.
The more lies, the better. I know these sample library developers, they get a lot of complaints because sometimes you hear a player is flipping the page on the stand.
Hmm.
For me personally, I love it when I can hear
Hmm.
something human in it.
Right.
It makes it so much more real for me. So yeah, there are too many perfectly sampled libraries in my
Yeah.
in my opinion.
It works nice for me because I can't do that anyway. I don't have the gear or
No,
the perfect acoustically treated room to replicate that. So thankfully people are doing that. But what I can do is
yeah,
lean into the problems,
right,
and let those be a feature really. Um,
yeah,
I did a classical guitar and I purposely recorded finger noise sounds that you can raise and put in there. And I think even like
cool.
while like on a few of the notes, you can kind of hear like as the strings decaying, my breath, just me breathing. And I think that
Yeah.
adds life to it. It makes it sound real,
Oh, yeah.
like there was somebody playing it, because there was,
Absolutely.
and I think
Yeah.
that's kind of a theme in a lot of the music I love and I try to make, is to sort of leave some of that life in there, because it's easy to edit it all out, and some of it probably should be edited out, but it's nice to, you're in there. It's a capturing of a time and a place, and
Yeah.
that stuff is authentic, and it lends to the vibe and the mood of the pieces that you're doing.
Yeah. From what I've heard, I'm not using Ableton myself, but I know for film scoring, it's a little. I'm not sure if it's as good working with picture, but I hear that like the sound design capabilities are just awesome with Ableton. It's
Yeah, I love it for that.
yeah.
You can do film, you can have picture. I don't know on the
Okay,
same scale you're doing, you can put video in there. I've done a little bit of that, and it's nice to be able to.
cool.
But yeah, that's really part of the thing that pulled me into the whole Ableton Live world, was just how easy it was to throw something in a sampler. And they have these like drum racks that are basically 16 pads, and you just put anything you want in there. Even like you can put a
Right.
synthesizer in there, and
Nice.
it's very easy to just experiment, try things. And I've realized that one of the things I love about making music is almost like a explorer mindset, almost like I'm getting in the boat in 1400 and just, let's see what happens if we keep going.
Yeah.
Let's see what we find. And
Yeah.
I love doing that with sound, to just see, well, what'll happen if we do this? And it does, I'm sure you can do it in whatever you're using, but there's a kind of like simplicity and intuitiveness, I think. At least for what
Nice.
I was doing, it made it just like simple to get from point A to B.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what it's all about. That's that's what I want to just
Yeah.
make it simple to go from A to C. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really, as much as I love Ableton Live, and if someone asks me what they should get, I'd be, get it, but
Yeah.
it's what you know. It's what you know how to use and what you're comfortable
Oh,
with.
sure.
I mean, I know people that don't even use computers and use old gear, and you look at them like, what are you doing with that thing? But then they're making music on it, and they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, one of my buddies, going some years back when I first got a computer to make music on, I thought I was all high tech and advanced, and it's taking me 3 weeks to figure out how to record the drum set. In the meantime,
Yeah.
he had this Boss zip disc recorder. So on zip, I don't even know, you remember zip discs? Like they were here and gone pretty quick. It recorded probably just a couple megabytes of data, but he was pounding out music like every day, like a new song, because he was so good at that machine. I mean, he's, and songwriting too, but his understanding of that machine was so fluid, and I'm just fumbling, like trying, how do I make a new track on the, just every little step of the way. I was learning still and didn't know what I was doing. So it's what what you good at, what you're comfortable with.
Sure. And that I feel that we spend too much time on technology, at least in my daily work. With all the I have one computer. It's very for film scoring. Or I don't know. There's a program called Vienna. So
Okay.
you have a sort of a sample server. So you have a dedicated computer just for spitting out samples from the orchestra. And there's so much the technology part. It just takes so much time. Like for everyone. Yeah, I'm glad though that we're not using the Zoom device or the bus that your friend were doing.
Me too.
Lacks some capabilities, but
Yeah. Well, I've recently pulled out my old 4-track cassette recorder, and couldn't believe how fast it was. It was almost faster. I was like, wasn't ready for how fast it was going to be. I put down like the guitar part, and then I'm like, oh, okay, the next guitar part. And then, just next thing I know, I'm
Oh,
like, whoa, like this happened as fast as possible. And there's no making new track. And it really cuts out just that thinking time too. Cause I'm not like, maybe I should put an EQ on this. Maybe we'll put a little reverb. It's like, I can't. It's just
yeah,
all you can do is move forward. And
yeah.
and that's a place where I know I get stuck, and I think a lot of people that I speak to run into that sort of like circular problem where you've got a few things and then you're just kind of tweaking them forever and you're not really making any progress.
Oh, for sure.
I could only imagine when you're working with as many instruments as you are with orchestras, it must be so tempting to really just get lost in all of that kind of stuff.
It's the again, it's the deadline that's the
Yeah.
lifesaver here. It's you just have to. But yeah,
Yeah. When there's only so much time, you can't spend hours and hours on those little details,
no,
experimenting
unfortunately
enough.
not. There's
Yeah.
when you getting email, where's our music? That's a yeah.
It seems like you do quite a lot of action in your work. Just looking at some of the films that you've worked on, seems like a lot of high energy stuff that, I mean, Avengers is, I mean, does it get more intense than that? You get the Fast and the Furious stuff. Is that kind of like a specialty of yours? Is that what you like to work? Is it just whatever the challenge calls for?
Uh, not really. It's just something I did. It's really just coincidence. It's a long story, but once you start doing something, you're getting good at it.
Yeah.
And other people, you have these movies on your sort of like your CV. So then I don't think that I have anything special from my background or anything. Maybe I do sort of, I've been playing like in bands and so on and so forth. So there's always this thing with big drums and the high energy things. Action music in the sort of the Hans Zimmer era, he changed up a lot of this. Action music doesn't sound as classical
Hmm.
in a way. Like these days, it's more like playing an orchestra like you do with a rock band.
Right.
The cello, it's like the power chords.
Uh-huh.
So da, 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 da. So you're just changing up the guitars with jelly just to get the sort of like the cinematic sound, but you have the sort of the rock band energy in there.
Hmm.
So I guess it's just, and then you have on your showreel and your sort of like your previous work a lot of action music, so it's easier to get a new gig that's action music. So yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
it's just a path there. Yeah.
Right. So you've proven that you have a way, you know how to do it. So,
Yeah.
and people can hear your work like that.
Yeah. So it could be that people they consider me for a movie, and then they see these movies like Troll and those other action movies, and they no, this is not our guy because this is an action guy, so he wouldn't
Hmm.
be a good fit for our drama thing.
Hmm.
You just get pigeonholed in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm. Is that are you looking to branch out? Do you have any desires? Is that, I mean,
Oh,
it's
for
a great
sure.
pigeonhole to
Yeah.
be in. I mean,
Yeah.
and so many times like artists are encouraged to almost pigeonhole themselves so like fans know what to
Yeah.
expect. And it would be kind of when artists stray too far from what they get known for, even if they've
Yeah.
already have a wide range, people sort of get upset and like, hey, wait a minute, that's not what you do. Is it like that for
No,
you a little bit
but
in this world too?
it's I think one should do that because it's so much more fun. I mean, like we started doing this because it was fun,
Yeah.
not because we were sort of building a brand in a way. So I think I'd love to do. I'm working on some stuff now that's very, very different, and I love it because it's different and it's fun, and yeah. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. It gives you
Yeah.
different. Is it orchestral stuff? Is it a little bit different?
No,
Yeah. Okay.
it's very different. A lot of processed electronics,
Oh, cool.
synthesizers. I'm enjoying every minute of it. It's so fun to do.
Right.
That's yeah.
Well, that's cool. I guess the sound world calls for these different tools in this case.
Oh, yeah. This is a very different sound world. That's for sure.
I mean, that's an excitement I get about making songs and albums, is that you can do that. I think when I first had like the power, to do anything I wanted, I tried to do everything I wanted in everything. Every song
Yeah.
had every possible musical feature I could dream of. And it
Right.
winds up like not really doing anything. But I've come to appreciate now that a lot of the great songs, a lot that I love, and that have sort of a real easy to identify sound or stamp, whatever it is, they tend to sort of do one thing. They kind of
Yeah.
this is the song that does that thing, and it stands out. And then that frees you to have the next song that does this other thing.
Yeah.
And
Film scoring is very nice in that regard because you're always serving the picture. So it's, does this track have this effect? Yes or no? If it does, yes, then it's doing what it's supposed to do.
yeah.
So you have sort of you have your boss right there, so to speak. So it's easier to make a judgment. But I just imagine like when you're working and you're putting together these albums, you can just, every option is open in a way.
Nothing really gets done until I close them down, though.
No, right,
It has to take a form. It has to sort of be narrowed in. Otherwise, there's no direction. And I've
right,
spoken to some people that work on films, or especially video game sound, where
right,
I've had people tell me that I don't know how you make a song without that guiding force of like, what's this game about? What's the feel? What part is this, the dungeon where the boss is? Okay. Like, what is this
right.
song for? So
Yeah,
I've spent a lot of time trying to think about that when I make a song too, is why would someone put this on? There's songs I love when I'm out partying with friends. And there's songs I love like to take a
right.
long drive to. And then there's other ones I want to wake up in the morning to, and then I fall asleep to this one. But they're never the same one. It's always something
No,
different. So I guess my way around that is thinking, this is the song you're going to put on when you're doing this. This is the song
yeah.
you're going to put on when you're doing it.
So your album, that's 10 songs for every occasion. That's the one for
Oh no.
one
So
for driving.
like, no. So what's helped me figure this out is like, these are all songs that kind of fit more like one thing. And I've been listening to them a lot when I'm driving, and they're rock songs with a little bit of an electronic sound, but it's higher energy.
Right.
It's not before bed. It's not first thing in the morning. But it
Oh,
might be like you're getting excited to do something, or maybe a little angsty, you know?
whoa.
So, but that having that, I think is a key for me. And like I said, like some people that do a lot of work with games and films have said to me, like, I need that directive, because there's so many possibilities. So I
Yeah.
need having like the directors tell you what it needs to be, or just have the particular, moment in the film or the game help guide that is really important.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's a huge help. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's yeah, the endless possibilities was always what I thought I wanted. And then when I got it, I was like, oh, what am I supposed to
Yeah.
do? I even find it, I teach high school English. It's my like grown up job, and
Yeah.
I thought, I got tired of how bored everyone was with the essays they had to write at school. So I told them, all right, well, for this one, you guys write about whatever you want. Anything goes. Your
Oh,
feelings, you can make up a story, your life. And I said that. I thought it was going to be the coolest assignment, and nobody did anything. Nobody knew where to start. Everybody was like, what should I write? I don't know what to write. And what I wound up doing was giving them, and we came up with all these things together that, so we came up with like a bunch of places. Let's come 5 places: the gas station, Taco Bell, whatever they came up with. And okay, what about like 5 objects around the house and random things? And then the guidelines for their writing was like, you can write whatever you want, but you have to include 2 of these, and 2 places. Suddenly, ideas start coming out. It was
that's
just that little bit of like, okay, I don't care what you write, but as long as there's a dog and a piece of rope, whatever you come
uh,
up with, it changed everything. And it's a lot like music.
oh, that's a fantastic story. It's just the way it is.
Hmm.
You need to have some building blocks there that are sort of, yeah.
Yeah. It seems pretty universal. I mean, it's not even just music. It's like so many things in life you can't get in a
Yeah.
car and just see where it takes you.
No.
You have to sort of have some direction. And I think it's very much that way. So I think it's been a lot of fun talking to learn about your
Oh, yeah.
process. And I love your energy. I can really tell like you're excited and you're having a lot of fun with what you're doing. And it's no wonder, you're having this success in your work.
Likewise. It's been so fun to talk with you, and these topics. I feel that we could talk for hours and hours, and you learn so much along the way. It never stops really. So yeah, it's a lot. It's been
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
I'm glad to hear you say that because, I think that too, that there's always something to learn and ways to grow. And there's just, that's the magic of it, I guess, that
Yeah.
it's a never ending pursuit. So I know you have johannesringen.com we can send people to, right? I think that gets people started, get into your IMDb.
Yeah.
And I found you on Apple Music and Spotify as well, so people can get you there.
Cool.
We want to direct people to watch Troll on Netflix. That's going to be my next
Fantastic.
movie night. I'm very excited. I love that I got to talk to you first too, because I'm gonna see it in a totally different light. And is there anything else you want to tell people to look at, check out, or go visit?
No, I think that's a really good start to watch Troll, and my webpage johannesringen.com needs a little bit of work, to be honest with you, but yeah,
Hey,
Troll is a good start. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I thank you so much for taking the time to talk.
Thanks so much, Brian. It's been great to talk with you.
Great. And for everyone that's listening, make sure you check out Troll, check out Johannes's website and his music. I mean, it's great. You can just put it on. It's beautiful stuff. So check it out and have a good day.